Whenever I make a video bashing or speaking negatively of Dr. John Campbell, it's not for any reason other than I really fucking hate misinformation. I loathe it with a burning, fiery passion. Before I go off on too much of a tangent here, I want to focus on this video. It surprised me how easy it was to go through this video here that you see on your screen and just do some Googling, just do some duck going, or however you would say it. Just researching, finding information for oneself. Because in this day and age, that's about the only way that you can trust what you're hearing is accurate. If you yourself go and do the work. Here's what happened in Japan around this time, around August 13th. A little bit before that, in May, COVID-related deaths peaked. So the health organization in Japan was looking at every single possible thing that they could throw at this fucking virus to get these deaths to trend downward. And ivermectin was uttered by this guy, Chairman Ozaki, Haruo Ozaki. You can see this article for yourself. I will put it, in fact, I encourage you to go and read this article for yourself. Everything will be in the description. Regarding the antiparasitic drug ivermectin, it shows the number of people infected with the new corona and the number of deaths in countries where it is administered preventively for another disease in Africa, saying, quote, "There is no story that it does not work at all." Keep that in mind. There is no story that it does not work at all. It is necessary to thoroughly conduct clinical trials and consider it, but I think we have reached a stage where it is acceptable to obtain permission to use it after obtaining informed consent from the patient. But people were already getting this stuff in May. Here's a study here. In this study, incidence of and ivermectin prescription trends for COVID-19 in Japan. They were trying to find out the efficacy of ivermectin on a small scale. 0.1% of the patients in this trial were prescribed just ivermectin. Our study suggested, and again, read this entire thing, but I've highlighted the important bit. Our study suggested that ivermectin prescriptions peaked in May, especially in hospitals. This was the period when the highest number of COVID-19 related deaths was reported in Japan, and prescription rates were higher among older women. During the peak period, many patients were severely ill, suggesting that physicians might have prescribed ivermectin as a last resort. By the by, what's more is that in this video, he said that he was expecting more information from Japan and that within a day or two, he was to get back to you. He was going to give that information to you. Now, one of two things happened because we never got that video. John Campbell realized he was wrong and decided against it. Or John Campbell realized that he was given some bogus information based on scant evidence and didn't want to, mar his credibility, so he just hoped people would forget about it, and I guess they did, because all I could come up with when I would search August 13th, Japan, ivermectin, August 13th, COVID, ivermectin, just all sorts of different keywords in so many different ways, I would only come up with things that say that the government does not approve ivermectin as a treatment. So the impression that I get is that ivermectin in Japan, on top of being studied and then being shown to be ineffective, it was being used as a last resort. Kawa says ivermectin not effective in treating COVID-19. A clinical trial was unable to prove the efficacy of the antiparasitic medicine ivermectin against coronavirus variants, according to Japanese drug maker. This is a pharmaceutical company saying this. Co., which has indicated that it will no longer seek approval for the drug as a COVID-19 treatment. This was October 2nd, 2022. The company that once said it was effective came out and said that it's not effective. Can you imagine a corporation in America having this kind of humility? I'm not so sure. So, was Dr. John Campbell intentionally misleading people? Did he want people to believe that this ivermectin BS he was pushing had some actual real balls to it? Like some kind of evidence that you could look at and go, oh, I'm sorry, John. Yeah, I should have never doubted you. I can't prove it. I can't prove that he's intentionally misleading people. But again, this is something that a medical professional should be very much aware of. I feel sorry for the people in the comment sections who say, oh, thanks to your information, Dr. Campbell, I didn't get vaccinated and I didn't get my kids vaccinated. My aunt's not vaccinated. I passed this along to a coworker and now they're not going to vaccinate. I feel really sorry for these people. So sorry. Because they listen to this fucking crank and then they end up sick and they end up with long COVID, or worse, they die. No, ivermectin has not been proven to be effective or safe. Japan never approved it, never made any public statement approving it, and more often than not, you were finding ivermectin in hospitals where people who were sick with COVID already were. So I think it's a lot safer to say that people were getting the higher incidence of people getting ivermectin was because it was a last resort. This bullshit that he peddles in the video later on, looking at how after this supposed approval of ivermectin dropped these numbers down to nothing, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just correlation. But coincidence, as John Campbell would enunciate, just like parallels. He does that to speak to the anti-vaxxers in his base. It's kind of like a coded language. It sounds very conspiratorial, I know, but it's just noticing anomalies. And one of the anomalies is when he mentions something like parallel or coincidence or misleading. It's almost as if he is trying to make those words dirty, and he's trying to remind the vaccine skeptic or completely anti-vax people in his viewership that there's something they're not telling you, and I'm the one who's going to have the information, so keep coming to me. Like he's got some kind of esoteric well of knowledge somewhere that none of us are allowed to see. It's just so frankly embarrassing that human beings would allow themselves once again to flock to somebody and then go and spread his videos everywhere and make even more people vaccine skeptic and make this fucking pandemic go on and on and on. And by the way, let's check in on Japan. Let's see how Japan is doing. Is ivermectin the wonder drug? Is ivermectin keeping that curve flat? Keeping that line all the way down? Is it? No. This is back when ivermectin was allegedly approved right here about... Okay, I'll just leave it there. And then there's a big lull and then... So if ivermectin is so effective as John Campbell keeps coming this close to saying is like the cure. He really, by the way, that's something else he's really good at. He's really close to getting, or he's really good at getting close to getting kicked off of YouTube or saying something that's going to get him kicked off of YouTube, but not actually saying it. Just like Trump, he got really close to saying things that would implicate him in all the stuff he was accused of time and time again, but he didn't say the thing that was the smoking gun that would send him packing. Why is COVID still going up and down, up and down, up and down if ivermectin was so effective in Japan? I think Dr. John Campbell needs to be a little bit more patient. Science moves at the pace of science. You can't fucking rush these studies. You can't rush these trials. I mean, I can't even imagine how tired and stressed the medical community on this planet in general is because of these past 2 years, going on 3. And people like John Campbell just don't help. They just don't help. Oh shit, I didn't even have the screen on for that. Yeah, here you go. I mean, this over here is 2021. This is all 2022. Ivermectin didn't do shit in Japan. It didn't do shit. And it doesn't do shit for COVID. It absolutely doesn't. But to keep insisting that it's a treatment that does anything is what keeps him relevant. Just like the other things he insists that are complete and utter total fucking bullshit. I'm so tired, so very tired of fucking bullshit and the people who spread it. Do your own research! Please? Pretty please? Okay. I'm glad we're in agreement. I wish. Have a good day, folks.